This episode is a special one dedicated to the 2024 Convo By Design Icon Registry inductees. This inaugural class of inductees features a diverse group of extraordinary creatives. If you have been listening to the special episodes that air the third Thursday of each month, you've heard just what makes these people so extraordinary at what they do. This was the first year of the program, and it is scheduled to run into 2025 and beyond, as you may have heard in the Thankful episode. But I have something special for you. This idea for a Hall of Fame was conceived quite some time ago, but I struggled with a touch of imposter syndrome. I thought, who am I to bestow an honor like this on these people? The best in the business today. And then a few things happened. The first was the 10-year anniversary party, which was held in May of 2023. I was surrounded by so many friends, previous guests of the show, industry partners, all who listened to the show on a weekly basis, and I heard stories about how these conversations helped them in their careers, in their business, especially through the pandemic. And now, when it feels like life has become a series of crisis management events, one after another, to showcase those who have figured it out and sharing how they did it, then celebrating their accomplishments, it just felt like a good time to start this project. This is not a list by which I expect anything in return. Just so you know, there is no ask for promotion or special media shares, social media shares, or special treatment. None of these recipients have in any way, shape, or form paid for this or even knew it was coming. This is just my way of celebrating these folks, but there are criteria. These individuals have all been on the show. They are extraordinary at what they do by any and all standards, and they make our industry better than they found it. That's a big one. You will find that each of these amazing creatives have produced exceptional work. Many do, but not all give back. Everyone here has, in exceptional ways. And you're going to hear a bit from each. By the way, the entire episodes are available, and if you missed any, you can check the links in the show notes to listen to each one in its entirety. And we're going to get to that right after this. I am just incredibly proud of this partnership I've got with Thermosol. They have been presenting partners of Convo by Design going on 5 years now. And there is a certain amount of pride that comes with saying that the show is presented by the company that is the best in the world at what they do. Thermosol engineers the most exceptional smart shower products and steam shower systems worldwide, full stop. And it's for a few reasons. First of all, they were the first company to design and patent the technology here in the United States, dating back to 1958. Thermosol, a U.S.-based manufacturer based in Round Rock, Texas, employs an engineering team that designs, tests, and continuously refines the product. Their quality control team tests every single steam generator before it departs the factory. Who else does that? Nobody that I know of. I have the pleasure of working with some world-class designers and architects who tell me, and if you're in the business, you know this, that the idea of luxury has changed, especially when clients want a spa-like bathroom. Steam is mandatory, or it's just not considered a luxury. And if you want to add steam, you have only one true option, my opinion, and that's Thermosol. Mitch Altman, third-generation CEO of this family-owned company of 65 years, continues to innovate in the bathroom and shower space through technological marvels such as intelligent showering systems, sound therapy, aromatherapy, technical interfaces, and so much more. And now Thermosol, the industry leader in steam bath equipment and technology since 1958, as I mentioned, is enhancing its already stellar family of products with the new indoor and outdoor luxury saunas, available in 3 designs. The configurations are absolutely amazing, and you should probably go check them out. Indoor and outdoor options. It's amazing. You really do need to check them out. Go to thermosol.com or at Thermosol on the socials. First up, Let's hear from our January 2024 recipient. And the first one, Bunny Williams.
I went to work at Parrish Hadley. I was 22 years old. I was hired as a secretary. I started at the bottom. I'd had 1 year of a junior college with a design program. I hadn't been to design school. I wanted to go work with that firm, and I was willing to take any job I could get. What was interesting about going to work with a firm like that is that you immediately knew you were really exposed right away to what you didn't know. I mean, you might have a good color sense and have some background. I'd worked in an antique shop, but when you saw the scale of these projects, how they were put together, how they were organized, what you had to do as a designer, you had to tell the sofa you're ordering, you have to tell every detail. Do you want a welt? Do you want a gimp? Do you want a skirt? How do you want the skirt to fall? Every single thing we do as a designer has detail, has customization. And I was like, wow, and you have to get it right and you have to communicate it. So it was an amazing experience. Albert, who had been a teacher at FIT, was always a teacher to us. I mean, we used to have to do a scheme for him we had to make a presentation to him. And then he would very kindly tell us that it was hideous, or that he used to say, I would bring in, I'd say, oh, I have this fabulous mirror for this dining room. And he'd say, have you scaled it in? Of course I hadn't. And he knew right away it didn't fit. He could just look at it and tell it didn't fit. And then I would embarrassingly go draw it in on the elevation. And of course it didn't fit. And that's when you learn that you've got to scale everything in. I mean, you can't be buying for a project that's 300 miles away unless you know it's going to fit that space. And so there are these principles of things that I certainly learned, and I hope to pass on to my office and people who work for me. I don't expect anybody to work for me forever, but I hope that what they learn from me, that they will go out and be better designers.
Thank you, Bunny. February 2024, Carol Woodhouse.
I was the person that said I would never, ever want an interior design firm. And here we are 20 something years later, having multiple firms. But I was really fortunate in the beginning of my career. I worked for some, top-notch design firms, AD Top 100, and got some great experience. I really only worked prior to starting my own company for I want to say 3 years, almost 4 years. And I actually was approached by a friend of a friend who bought a property, a waterfront property in Miami Beach, in South Beach. And they wanted to hire me to do a full gut renovation and design of this house with a really healthy budget. And I couldn't say no. And I'm the type of person that I kind of just roll with things and I figure it out as I go along. And I'm like, all right, I knew really nothing, business side of this really. But figured it out. And that's kind of how my business got started. And I was smart enough to pull a business partner in, someone that I worked with at one of my older firms, who all she wanted to do was have her own firm. And so I made her leave her job. I'm like, you're my partner. We're going to Miami. This is going to be fun. And basically then word got out, and the job that we left, we had a great relationship with the owner, and she would feed us these jobs. She was working on, $10, $15 million decorating budgets. So her $1.5 to $2 million decorating budgets, she didn't want that. So we were like, that's amazing. We're starting out. This is incredible. So we were really fortunate to get these amazing projects, and made many mistakes along the way and kind of figured things out. And that's how we got started. And we grew really, really fast. We were hungry for it. We wanted to succeed. And that was my first design firm.
Thank you, Kara. March was a celebration of Jean Brownhill?
So I have to be honest. I did not know anything about this industry. So we're going to go all the way back to when I was a junior in high school. I was good at math. I was good at art, but that was only because I have dyslexia. So my guidance counselor said, you should be an architect. You're good at math, you're good at art. That's like what an architect does. Now, nobody in my community, nobody in my family, I didn't know what that meant. But my mom pulled out one of these College for Dummies books. She then goes to the architecture section. She finds Cooper Union is free. And she's like, great, now I know how you're going to go to college. We have no money for you to go to college. This place is free. You're going to go for architecture. Done, problem solved. Now, I didn't realize that was kind of an insane idea because it's harder to get into than West Point. But I was up for the challenge as always, and I loved, and they really rely on a home test as part of the application process. And I'm just a naturally curious person, as I said, who doesn't quit. And so I did that home test. I was on fire to do that home test. Got into Cooper Union, found out that I actually do love architecture, that I love living in cities, that I love, it was serendipity in the most true sense of how I got into the industry. And I haven't looked back. I have not had any other profession. I have not been in any other industry. I love architecture. I love construction. I was in college. I was like a shop rat. I was the girl on the table saw pouring, and I was pouring bronze and doing all the crazy things. I loved it. I just loved it. So it found me, and we've been happy ever since.
Thank you, Jean. April and Alex Papachristides.
Well, I guess it's a little different for me because I never worked for anybody. Right, Josh? So
yeah.
I've never worked for another decorator. So I guess my style is sort of my own style, but with a sense of history. And so maybe history is a little more important to me because that's how I learned to decorate. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I didn't learn from a Mark Hampton or a David Easton. I didn't learn from those people because I didn't work for them. Now, am I inspired by their decorating? By all sort of great decorators? Yes, but I tend to be inspired from decorators before that. I'm such a Francophile. So the French decorators are probably, my big, the Henri Samuels and the Janssen and pretty much everybody who worked there, Stéphane Boudin. But then, of course, I'm also inspired by Renzo Mongiardino because I love that kind of, I love layered decorating. And I think that was sort of at its best in, the way that I liked it most in the, 50s and 60s and that kind of divine decorating that still feels fresh and a little bit modern, and the way they would use, art, mirrors, and sort of even contemporary elements, even Valerian Rybar, the way they did things that were so classic but modern, but had this kind of edge to them. So, I guess that's how I've been influenced, really, and why history is so important to me, because I've always been on my own.
It's really interesting to hear you say that too, because as a historian,
I've never thought of it before, Josh. Just talking to you now is how I came up with that, really. It's the truth. I've never really sort of sat and thought that through. But when you said about Bunny and working for Sister Parish, I thought to myself, well, I really never worked for anybody. So what is it that is my influences? And it's history. And that's probably why history is so important to me.
Amazing, Alex. May brought us Susan Ferrier.
I think it's who I am as a person. And I think that if I didn't start off that way, it's because someone was stopping me from expressing myself in that way. So I think I'm really fortunate that I have been given the opportunity to really fully express myself and, bring that feeling forward, and be empathetic with the person that's sitting in front of me that wants a space created for them. So I think that a lot of what, I'm not a designer that memorizes the provenance of a piece of furniture. I'm always somebody that looks at a piece of furniture and says that feels good, or that feels right, or I like the line of it, or the mood of it. And I think when you look at everything like that, when it's all added together, I think that you're left with a space that exudes a feeling. I feel as if I'm much more agile as a designer if I don't have rules that I have to follow. And I also think that anybody that comes to me and wants to work with my firm, I think that they want to know that what they're being left with looks like them. So the only thread through the work that I do that I recognize is the atmosphere that's created, or a sense of atmosphere that's created.
What's interesting to me is I often hear people talk about certain comparisons between interior design and fashion. And it's really interesting to me to hear you talk about interior design as a reflection of them, where when you look at fashion is often dictated because they want to be somebody else, or they want to look like somebody else. So it's really interesting. You can make your fashion choices with an inspiration board based on a model or based on a person that you see, whereas design really is so personal. And that being said, and because you're trying to find who someone really wants to be, psychology comes into this, and you're talking about things that are kind of challenging at times to drill down on, because when you first sit down with a couple, he's going to say this, she is going to say that, or he's going to say this, he's going to say that. It takes time, right, to get to the bottom of that. Where do you start? Do you have a process?
Well, my process always starts with talking to them. And sometimes if you have a couple that they seem to be really different, but they've got to share something or they wouldn't be together. And it's my job to figure out, you hope it's a good thing. You hope it's a kind and healthy thing, but you have to really listen to what they say so you can figure out what that thing is, what their priorities are, what is important to them. None of us know what we share with our partners. No one really knows what that relationship is all about. So in a way, I have to kind of be a voyeur and a private detective and try to figure out what it is that they share that's really successful, because they both have to love it. Listening is a really big part of what I do. And when I'm done, the interior should really be a self-portrait of the people I'm doing it for.
Which leads me to one of the other things I find so interesting about your work. Just out of curiosity, your thoughts on, if I say, it's like free association, right? If I say the word maximalism, what's your response to that?
I think that if you can do it successfully, I think it's great. I think there's a difference between just getting a whole bunch of stuff and putting it together, or getting a whole bunch of items together that have a relationship.
Totally agree. And the next place I wanted to go is I wanted to actually touch on the edit. But before I did, I'm curious, would you consider yourself a designer who practices maximalism at times? Not that you do it all the time, but is that an area that you would consider yourself a practitioner?
I've never thought about it in those terms, but I will tell you that I will fill a space. And I'm filling that space because I'm paying attention to every part of that space. I think it's important to look up, it's important to look down. And I think that when you're working with an architect, it's a hand and glove relationship. They've provided you with the substrate, and it's your job to clothe it, in something that fits it perfectly. Nobody likes a loose glove or a glove that's too tight.
It's so true.
On to June. This is Dakota Jackson.
When I'm in the studio, it is a sacred place. I have very strict protocols within the studio. In terms of how we as designers work, where we even hang our coats, what you can bring to your desk. I feel that it has to be this very pure space where thought can go on uninterrupted. And in that respect, it is very much a sanctuary. The door to my office has a prayer room on it, and it either says, I can't remember, it says empty, but the other side has a stop sign and it says in prayer. And it's there for anybody in the company who needs those moments alone, but it's not even my office, it's sort of my study. And it's not that we walk around in tiptoe, but we're very conscious of one another. We're very conscious of not breaking each other's thought processes. I don't exist. I exist first with language. I probably have a visual catalog in my head of tens and tens and tens of thousands of images that go back to early childhood. I was trained as a memory artist, and as such, images have very strong emotional connections to them. They trigger very quickly between a thought, an image. The problem of design, though, I don't want to say it's about function, but it relates to, I guess, I don't even want to be corny about it, but how it's used. It relates to these objects that come as close as you can get them to perfection, All the rest of it is hell, sheer hell, all the time. Getting people to move along with you. You work in a company with people have different interests. My commitment is, I know this sounds corny too, is to my clients. I have a moral and an ethical contract to deliver to the expectation of people who have put a great deal of faith and anticipation in what I do. And that drives me as much as the idea of purely creating a very pure vision.
Thank you, Dakota. July was a celebration of Bridget Romanek.
Well, it's informed it very heavily. I mean, even subconsciously, and then when I sit and think about it and process and how I got here, it's all part and parcel of that. Because my mom has siblings, and she was the kid who was different in the family, the one who was like, oh, what's going to happen with her? What's she going to do? And she just always wanted to sing, where her sisters are like nurses and teachers, and and her brother is a preacher, but she wanted to be that a singer, and they thought that was just sort of like crazy, but she was just always just this free spirit, and she needed to do it. It was just part of who she is and how she came into this world. And so with her having me and needing and wanting to do that, my experience was so different to other kids. And how they were living. I mean, I changed schools all the time because we went to where the work was, wherever she'd get a job singing. And then I would stay with family members, and then she would travel around the world and then bring me weird little gifts. Other kids would get a Barbie, but I would somehow get, a fabric doll from from some country. And it was at the time, it was amazing, and also difficult because my childhood wasn't normal. But all of the moving around and all of the experiences helped me to understand that I could make any place home. It helped me to understand that to think differently was okay. It helped me to have a strength and a confidence that came over time. I mean, I was always a shy kid, but like this confidence that came over time, that what I was doing or what she was doing, it was okay. It was like super okay to be you, be different. And that 100% really is where I live with my interiors and how I do and how I design. I didn't study design. It was just this thing. I feel like being my mom's kid, she's such a creative, that I am such a creative. And it is just how I function in the world and how I breathe. Everything is visual or through emotion. And that is just the lens that I look through and the lens that she looks through. So my upbringing and my mom being such a fun, wild, free spirit really made me think that things were okay, and to things that didn't go together were okay, because she was different to her siblings, and she would have friends who would come and do graffiti on our living room walls. No other kid was living that way at the time, and so it just made me more adventurous and accepting and okay with things that were out of the ordinary, so definitely informs my design.
Do you think that upbringing gave you a certain level of confidence because you saw that it's okay to fail, it's okay to try things that don't work, because things that don't work lead to things that do?
Absolutely. Yes, I mean it's very mixed, because as a kid, always being the new kid, or often the only African American kid, all of these things initially are challenging, but when you get through them, you're like, hey, I did that, I'm all right, and I'm still okay. And so that begins to seep in, and I've always been more on the quiet side and shy, and I do speak through my creativity. And so the way I grew up, even though it was hard, it also allowed me to know that it's all right, it's okay, and you can do you. And it did give me this quiet confidence. And so the first time when someone said to me, with no design knowledge whatsoever, other than just the school of life and the school of my mom, Paulette, I said, when they said, can you help me with my house? I said, sure, I can do it. And I believed that I could with no knowledge. And, it's often one of those things where one might say, no, I'm not going to do it. But I was just like, let's do it. Let's go for it. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't think I would have that without my upbringing, because I'm more on the shy side. So.
Thank you, Bridget. August was marked by the return of Jamie Bush to the show, and you're going to hear a little bit from Jamie right after this. As a busy professional designer, you know how important it is to find the right partnerships that allow you to specify the right products for every project. Professionals like you don't just have time to sit around and waste, right? So let me tell you about one of my partnerships. Pacific Sales is here to serve you with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for all your projects. Non-commissioned. That means their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that, with over 60 years of service in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. And you will find all your favorite brands, like Monogram, and their commitment to providing exceptional products, starting with materials. Monogram sources commercial-grade stainless steel on their refrigerators, unscratchable sapphire glass on their cooktop knobs, durable marine-grade bearings on their dishwasher racks. Monogram takes inspiration from the leading-edge materials used in the high-end automotive and aeronautics industry to provide you with lasting beauty and exceptional quality. The beauty is backed by the same level of attention to performance, which is why Monogram appliances are trusted and sought after by chefs all over the country. Chain-driven French oven doors that can be opened with one hand, and an industry-exclusive hearth oven that allows for all-electric indoor brick oven-style cooking without the need for external ventilation. These are just a few of the things that make Monogram so special. Pacific Sales features Monogram appliances, and Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team is here to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. And here's the cherry on top: access. Access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands like Monogram. Visit a Pacific Sales showroom today to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, where excellence meets expertise. The absolute best specifying designers, architects, and landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You just have to be. And you have to because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That is one of the reasons why I am so incredibly proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, the aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you my board flipping stories about my own wood decks over the years. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious about the environment and they want the same of their materials and the companies that manufacture their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood. Color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior. It's been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled materials. 85% recycled materials. Their advanced PVC vintage and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech. You can also check them out directly, timbertech.com. Next up was September, and a celebration that revolved around the incomparable Timothy Corrigan. What was it?
Well, it was interesting. I had already started doing some interior design work while I was living in France, while I was running our European operations. So I'd started doing that, and I really enjoyed that whole process so much. So I started doing that as my nighttime job, and it was great because I really loved that. And so it became more and more clear that that's really what I wanted to do. And then there actually was one interesting situation that sort of made me say, that's enough. I was on the road basically for 11 days, sleeping on an airplane, flying to Beijing to open our office there. I was there for 6 hours, got on an airplane and flew from there to Caracas, from there to London, et cetera. And I didn't even stay in a hotel for 11 days. I was just basically sleeping on airplanes and showering at the airport and going to the next meeting. And that's when I said, there's got to be a better way of living. And so I was really the decision to leave what I was doing in advertising and start my whole field, my new field in design.
So at the same time, and I want to ask if this is true, read an article about you in Architectural Digest. Your childhood home, I guess, was on the market again. You bought that, you remodeled it. It was in housing.
It was in Architectural Digest.
It was in Arch Digest.
Yeah.
And that was your childhood home.
Right, exactly.
So what was that process like? Because at the time, that's not your chosen profession per se yet.
I know. By the time I bought it, actually, I was a designer. At that point.
You were,
so,
okay,
yes,
full
yes.
time.
So I was able to totally renovate it and sort of get rid of all the ghosts of your childhood and recreate it for the way I wanted to live today.
And your style is really well defined. It's really pronounced. Not that you're stuck within a certain confines necessarily, but it's grand. And it's durable, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think it's more than just durable. It's really comfortable, and comfortable is really the basis upon which everything we do. And not just that it's physically comfortable. It has to, of course, be something soft to sit on and comfortable that way. But comfort has a lot of other elements, psychological, practical elements as well. We've all walked into houses where people, it clearly says, look, but don't touch. You're not meant to really live here. You're supposed to just look at it. And that's not the way we design. We really design to live in houses. So they're comfortable to live in ways of, you can put your hot mug down on a table, not worry about leaving a mark. You can put a wet glass on a table, again, not worrying about a mark. put your feet up on a sofa, and again, not worry about staining it. So it's really about using materials and treating materials in such a way that you can live in them comfortably, because that is really one of the key things of a really successful home, is one that you can live in comfortably.
Thank you, Tim. Next up, October's inductee, Kyle Bunting.
Josh, I was just thinking about, you said something about my intuition. And I think Tim and I had started playing around with this concept of like what these designs are going to look like and what they're going to kind of feel like. And that there was Tim's observation was a hole in the collection. And so here we were, it was, Tim, I want to say January, right, of 19. Here I was, I'd come to Paris. I was like, I was in this crazy relationship. I was all in love. I'm like, we're going to go out to a chateau and you're going to just, and Mr. Corrigan's going to take us there and you got to see this place. And, it was all this, but it was really this incredibly passionate kind of energetic moment of going to take the journey and married with Tim's ideas. And I remember walking on the property and the intuition for me was like, this is it. This is where it is. This is where the designs are based. It's a chateau collection. It's got the background of the space. It's got this romance. It's got this whole aura about it. And I think it was really the kind of the 2-year period of developing the designs and going back and forth. Tim and I would have this done in like 3 months, but COVID hit and it just kind of turned the world upside down. And I think our instinct was in the spring, just roll it out, let it be what it's going to be, and let's make it vibrant and dynamic, kind of like flowers are blooming, like something's new. And let's just show the world that you can do fully saturated, dynamic things maybe in the midst of this all. And I think we hit the right tone. I really do.
What's been so much fun is to see the incredible reaction we've had by people already. I mean, Kyle's just keeps saying to me, well, we've sold this rug, we've sold that rug, we've sold this design. It's so exciting. And I actually had some people, I'm at my chateau and I had some people here yesterday and I have some of the rugs out and people were just like, oh my God, they're amazing. I actually had someone today even contacted me to say, how do I order one of those? So it's just, people are really loving the rugs, they're loving the designs. And I think it's exciting to have that sort of immediate reaction.
Josh, just to add to that, it's like we've done a lot of collections with a lot of different people and they all have varying degrees of like short and long-term success. Usually the market takes a while to embrace. But the passion and the enthusiasm for this work has been it's been instant in a very unique way. And I think it's because it's so different. It's like, look at this departure from what we normally do. And people are really excited about it because I just think it's so unique.
Thank you, Kyle. November and Brian Pinkett.
Yeah, it's opportunity. I'm friends with the dean at SciArc, and one of my best friends from Cornell is now the dean over at USC, and we had lunch the other day, and we were talking about this diversity in the school, like how it's shifting, who's enrolling. College right now, it's so difficult to get into colleges. So whereas designers may be creative, their scores might not be the highest to get into school. And it's just unfortunate that the way that the system is set up isn't necessarily for people to be creative and find their passion and their outlet. And I think it's up to us and all of you here who are conscious of this to sort of go back and mentor and share your experiences with young people, because that's one of the big concerns of mine. I founded a nonprofit. It's called Legacy Kids Project, where kids in the inner city get to develop projects for legacy in their community. So they get to design it, they get to execute it, and then we fund it for them. So it's the exposure, like Ron is saying. We've got to give them exposed to it. What are the opportunities? I never thought I was going to get into Ivy League school. His counselor was like, you're never going to get in. And what got me in was my talent. you know. At 18, I was fortunate, exposure again, to be in an area where there was a competition for high school seniors, and whoever won the competition, their house got built. So I said, in ninth grade, that's going to be me one day. And luckily, knock on wood, it happened. And so for me, it was just driving and pushing and believing in myself and knowing that there is a way. Not every kid, especially in diverse communities, know that's even possible. And the way the media talks now, it's either, it used to be sports, and now it's acting and it's music. So the media moves kids around to different ways that is what you should be or what you should look like. And whether you're African American or white or whatever nationality or religion, that sort of drives them. Like their kids are playing Fortnite. I mean, I don't even know what Fortnite is, but is it going to get them anywhere? Who knows? Maybe it will. But the opportunity needs to be given to them so that they can actually see their possibilities. And that's what I encourage all of us to do, participate.
Thank you, Brian. And finally, for December, the Brownstone Boys. Now, you won't hear their full episode for a few weeks, so let me tease it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the only thing that I would say is that if you've ever seen Sex and the City or Sesame Street or a lot of those really iconic shows that are, shot in New York, then you've seen Brownstone, Brooklyn, because the stoop in the front and the tree-lined streets and, the architecture and the history, that really kind of encompasses a lot of, a brownstone neighborhood in Brooklyn. And technically what a brownstone is it's a row house, which, you may be familiar with. It's just a row of houses that all touch one another. And they're usually a masonry building, but the actual facade of them is covered traditionally in something called brownstone. It's something that was mined just outside of New York, kind of in the Northeast. And now it sort of has changed a little bit and actually encompasses more than just, a home that's covered in that facade called brownstone. Sometimes it's just a brick building. Sometimes it's stucco now, more modern technology, more modern building materials. But the idea of a brownstone is still kind of the same. That tree-lined street with the stoop, the row house. And I think the thing that kind of ties it all together is the community, because everyone hangs out on their stoop. Everyone, sits and, has a drink, has a glass of wine, eats dinner. Our neighborhood does something called the Stoop Social, where everyone just kind of, and it's been great during COVID as well, because you're sort of naturally social distance because everyone's kind of on their stoop and you can walk around and talk to your neighbors still. And so really the community around it and the way it sort of brings people out to the front of their house and meeting one another is really the thing that ties it all together.
And we live in an area called Bed-Stuy, and it's in Brooklyn, but it is primarily Brownstone, Brooklyn, within Bed-Stuy. But there are other areas in Manhattan and Harlem. There is a really well-known brownstone district. Washington, D.C., there's also a brownstone community. And I believe in Philadelphia as well, too, there's a brownstone. So this community, this brownstone culture, is still in America, and it's just
East Coast based.
East Coast. But as an early age, I grew up out west as well too, and it's just that background on the TV of watching Sesame Street and just that culture. It's like I want to be part of that. So that began the obsession for me at a very early age.
Design Hardware's newly remodeled showroom is where you will find a gallery-style space with a thoughtful display of products, purposefully positioned to allow unbridled exploration and discovery. High-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware selections are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find your inspiration. Collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your shopping list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles. What a great look back. And what incredible people. I'm grateful and thankful that they all took the time to share their gifts here with us. Each inductee will be receiving, in addition to my eternal gratitude, a hand-turned piece to commemorate their induction, crafted by yours truly through JMC Studio. They have all been fabricated from local materials here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, including wood from an old white oak that fell during the derecho of 2023. Thank you again to each of these amazing individuals for giving so much to the industry and the clients you serve. Thank you to my partner sponsors for your continued support: Thermosol, Pacific Sales, Monogram, TimberTech, and Design Hardware. Amazing companies who are dedicated to the success of the specifiers who craft and construct some of the world's greatest structures. And thank you for listening to the show, downloading episodes and sharing them with your colleagues, friends, clients, family. Please keep those emails coming to the show with guest suggestions and show ideas. Convo by Design at outlook.com and at Convo by Design with an X on Instagram. Until next week, be well and take today first.